A very good morning to all of you. I am Mansi and I'm delighted to host this special edition of Impact Talks hosted by CSR Box. This Impact Talk would focus on health energy program and opportunity for just transition in India. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce two distinguished personalities, Mr. Ved Mani Tiwari and Mr. Harish Hande, who will be enlightening us on health energy programs and its role in just transitioning that corporate India is also focusing on. I would first introduce Mr. Harish Hande. He is a renewable energy entrepreneur with over 28 years of grassroots experience in understanding, developing, and deploying sustainable energy solutions for the underserved communities. He is the co-founder of Selco Solar Light Private Limited and is presently the CEO of Selco Foundation. Mr. Harish has received many national and international awards, including the Ashton Award in 2005 and 2007, the Karnataka Rajyotsava Prashasti in 2011, Zayed Future Energy Prize in 2018, and even the Skoll Award for Social Entrepreneurship in the same year. He is a recipient of Asia's prestigious Raymond Magsaysay Award in 2011 for his pragmatic efforts to put solar power technology in the hands of the poor through his social enterprise Selco India. He is an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur and holds a PhD from the University of Massachusetts. A warm welcome to you, Mr. Harish.
Thank you.
Our second speaker is Mr. Ved Mani Tiwari. He is the Chief Executive Officer of National Skill Development Corporation, that is NSDC, and Managing Director of its wholly owned subsidiary, NSDC International. He has 3 decades of experience working with the Government of India and with key industries in the private sector, including infrastructure, energy, urban development, and transportation. He is credited for setting up the first phase of Delhi Metro as a part of its core leadership team for executing successful partnership between Kochi Metro and Kudumbashree, world's largest women's self-help mission, which helped skill young women in Kerala to take up the facility management jobs in Kochi Metro. He is an alumnus of ISB Hyderabad and has completed executive programs from the Kellogg School of Management and Wharton Business School. A warm welcome to you, Mr. Ved.
Good morning, and thank you so much for inviting me.
So, I would want to start the discussion with Mr. Harish with questions focusing on the health energy programs, and then move to Mr. Ved to enlighten us on energy transitioning with the focus of ESG and corporate India. So, Mr. Harish, we understand that the pandemic did serve as a reminder to focus on healthcare delivery for the common man across the globe. And the Health Energy Program focuses on uninterrupted healthcare services, especially in the rural areas. So can you elaborate on how does this program converge renewable energy with healthcare delivery, and what are the direct, indirect impacts that we can see?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure. And thank you, sir, for joining us together in this panel today. The issue is the role that energy plays in health, and especially in a country like India, is going to be transformational. And transformational, what I mean is that by using decentralized energy into our health systems in the rural areas, we can make sure that many of our rural health clinics, whether it's a subcenter or a PHC or a CHC, can actually be giving services to the poor what we would have got in 2035. We can actually make sure they're 2035 ready. They're advanced. It's not like we are actually doing a catch-up game. The beauty is that even if it's a rural Meghalaya or rural Assam or rural Manipur or rural Karnataka, if we look at decentralized energy, you can power very essential equipments, whether it's an autoclave, a suction pump, a maternal labor room, or any of the other devices that are very critical for day-to-day services. And that's what India can become an R&D center for the health energy nexus. And in today, because in many of these places, either there is an unreliability of electricity, voltage fluctuations. The beauty of putting solar is that it neutralizes that in a manner that patients, women, do not have to wait and come back the next day, that you can actually get service. And it's in most of the areas today, it's actually economically working out. So for a country like India, not only can it serve its 1 billion people, and especially the people who are in the remote areas, but also can be a showcase to other developing nations in the world.
Totally agree with you, sir. But like we understand that healthcare as a responsibility, public health is a responsibility of the government. So, what is the role of the government in developing such a program? And in addition to the government, who are the stakeholders that can ensure that there's deployment and sustainability of these healthcare facilities?
See, while I agree that government is a critical stakeholder by providing infrastructure like the PHCs, CHCs, and it can actually provide with the human resources that are needed. But the private sector, as well as the civil society, needs to also step up. And the private sector has to step up by creating efficient appliances. Like, for example, ma'am, today what happens is when you design a solar for an X-ray machine or a baby warmer, people complain solar to be expensive, but not realizing that the baby warmer is actually inefficient. If the private sector focuses on creating efficient appliances for resource poor areas, our country, that more of the poor can actually get benefited. So there's a large role of the private sector to bring in innovation, and especially innovation in the resource poor areas. Once you create innovation for the resource poor areas, you can then use it for any other area in the world. The civil society needs to play a more constructive role in making sure that these services become affordable for the poor and the good step. So the critical three stakeholders are the government, the private sector, and the civil society. The government has already put in resources. Private sector has to put in resources in innovation, and it's CSR monies to make that innovation viable at the doorstep. The civil society needs to make sure that it actually complements the efforts of both to make sure that the delivery of those services happen in the most effective manner.
So again, I think moving beyond these three stakeholders, the local systems also play a vital role in sustaining the long-term impacts. People who are actually working also in PHC, CHCs, and the rural areas. So, what are the different ways of transferring these deployed systems to the local healthcare staff that are working there? Maybe you can also let us know what are the challenges that can come up in scaling up these health energy programs and the possible solutions that we can also have a look at.
See, the question is, I would agree that many of our public assets need to be maintained. And one of the biggest challenges of the public assets, there is nobody to maintain. And lots of people actually put in capex, but not put in enough resources into opex. See, there is up to a certain level that I would actually depend on the local health staff to maintain the systems, but health staff should actually concentrate on delivering proper health services. It's the civil society, the private sector who are delivering these equipments need to establish after sales network in the rural areas, either rural technicians, local technicians from the TV repair guy, the local electricians need to be brought into creating these assets, because that's where the combination, it's very easy. It's sometimes people say that, okay, shall we train the staff? But the staff is already overburdened with providing health services. And what we should do is, depending on the area, for example, if Karnataka, the local private sector of providing solar is pretty much mature, put it on them, the 5 years AMC, etc., have a penalty clause on it. On the other hand, like Manipur and Meghalaya, where the remote areas, the ecosystem is very weak for the private sector to go in and provide, there, make sure that the project funding itself, like for example, if the whole project costs 10 crores, define the projects at 12 crores, where the 10 crores goes into capex and the 2 crores is actually put in an escrow account for maintenance of these systems. So what India provides is a bookend from Karnataka to Mizoram to Meghalaya, different types of O&M models that the world actually can learn from. So in some cases, it could be the NGO, some cases the private sector, in some cases the local technicians, and some cases the PPP model of the health. Like a lot of the health centers run on PPP model, where the PPP, the private sector, the NGOs that run it could also maintain it. So in India, you can actually come up with 6 to 8 different models of after-sales maintenance, which then can be showcased to Zambia, Kenya, or to even New York in many ways.
So there has to be a dynamism in terms of the geographical, right.
Yeah, because the immaturity of ecosystem is the terrain in Mizoram is too expensive for the private sector to actually provide those services. So we need to have some more philanthropic capital to make sure that the maintenance actually happens. While in Karnataka, the ecosystem is where if I do a health center properly, the private sector can get extra what you call as market from local shops and local households and the local banks. But in Mizoram, it might not happen.
Thank you, sir, for that lovely answer. I would want to move to Mr. Ved Tiwari because Mr. Hande did mention about the role of corporate India, and corporate India is also focusing on energy transitioning. That it's a global focus. The concept of transition does focus on sustainable energy transition framework and how it can improve the different socio-economic elements that will be impacted. So again, who are the major stakeholders and what is the specific roles and responsibilities in achieving this entire transition? Maybe if you can focus on what Mr. Hande said in terms of philanthropic capital, CSR roles and responsibilities.
So thank you so much. I would just like to continue with the thought that Mr. Harish has been laying down here. See, effectively, if you see the program that is being conceived, is that how do you provide sustainable energy to primary healthcare centers in rural areas? Typically, the entire renewable energy paradigm is based upon power purchase agreement. Long-term power purchase agreements provide access to capital. So there are large-scale grid-connected power systems which supply to urban areas are financially viable. But what is not viable is a small off-grid or a very small size renewable energy programs. So that is why it was interesting to us that the challenges of setting up a renewable energy power source in a difficult to access geographies or social groups which are not connected to the main grids is a massive opportunity, and that requires a very different kind of skills. The other component of this is a healthcare. And typically, whenever somebody learns healthcare skills, they have in the mind to join a good big urban hospital and things like that. And in this process, primary healthcare gets neglected. So both these efforts are actually a very big efforts towards creating opportunities for people in their own surroundings. Today, people travel lower long distance. Migration is a big problem. So they face a lot of miseries. Both these programs give an opportunity for local youth to choose either a healthcare opportunity or energy sector opportunity. And this model, through working with Harish, we would like to create a sustainable model where local youth are given an opportunity. And as National Skill Development Corporation, we have capabilities of training people in healthcare and the energy. And also, as he talked about, that many times philanthropic capital comes and provides an asset. But that asset is not people are not able to use that asset because nobody knows how to maintain those assets, and it becomes at the scale at which these assets operate, it becomes even more difficult for them to. While getting them is a tough ask, but maintaining them is far tougher ask than this. What we believe is that there is a massive convergence opportunity under our leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister. There have lots of rural assets have been created. Under Saubhagya, we created a power grid, electricity connection at every household. There are solar water pumps are reaching villages through Nal Se Jal. There are hydro assets are being created. So if we can train people in maintaining these assets, they will have opportunities around this, and that way we can create an economic zone within the rural ecosystem, and that can become extremely powerful program. That it's not a just energy transition; it's a transition to a new economic paradigm where people can get an opportunity within their own space. This can actually become an entrepreneurial opportunity. If you see the way the urban company operates. Anybody is able to access any skill, and skills are, if you go on pricing that they do, you will find that these are premium pricing that the skills get. So I personally believe that there is an opportunity to create a rural equivalent of this, and we ran some programs in uh, Jharkhand where we actually trained to all. It was an all women program. We brought 200 tribal women and trained them into multi skills. So somebody who was trained to be an AC repairer was also trained to become an electrician. Somebody who was trained a plumbing job was also trained in the masonry jobs. So provide a range of skills to people and connect them with opportunities like this. That's a transformational story that we believe, and that's what we at NSDC got excited, that this is an opportunity where we can create a new ecosystem. And as Mr. Harish was saying, the importance of this is enormous when we go beyond India. The entire Africa, it's a continent, and this model has a massive implication. It is an opportunity for all of us to come together and replicate it globally. That's what my major attraction is. I also believe that as long as we call these efforts as a philanthropic or impact, they don't become mainstream. So my request to business leaders like Mr. Harish is that we have to mainstream these things. And today, if you see, ESG is a mandate which every company which has a global presence has to conform to. Now, that mandate should not be left to compliance and governance. As part of that is sustainability. Now, here you have health, you have energy, you have skills, you have education, you have livelihood, everything coming together. Our effort should be to mainstream this. This has to become mainstream business, because if you do more of this, what in times to come, only those corporates will be rewarded who are responsible and good corporates. And good corporates will get access to both equity and debt capital. And that is the paradigm which I would invite Mr. Harish's reaction to this. That it should not be seen just as a small project. There is a bigger story here which we should take to the world, that it has to become a mainstream corporate agenda, because it helps you access debt and equity capital. And that message should not only go to the operating corps, it should also go to the funding organizations, that here is an opportunity and you can reward good behaviors who mainstream these things. So I would invite Mr. Harish's reaction to this. I personally believe that these things, unless they become mainstream business, they will continue to be like a charity work, which does not get scaled and which did not get the world's attention. We are at an interesting time where there's a strong focus on running responsible corporates, and that's what my thought is.
Thank you. Can I respond to sir?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So it's up. I mean, I'm absolutely brought in a point that it's like just about why should it something be only CSR, right? Like as it should be the primary objective of the organization itself. Why should we? I mean, the whole concept of 2% should go away. I mean, कि बस इतने कर रहे हैं हम खाली 2% में जैसे प्रोफेसर श्रीराम को मैं हर समय आई कोट इज लाइक when people say no I want to give back, तो बोलते हैं why did you take it in the first place? So the question but jokes aside, but I think we all are responsible for creating a inclusive society, and the disparities are there because we have created those disparities in a manner because businesses have to play a very strong role in ironing those differences, and those differences can only be ironed out if you're all creating that appropriate health livelihood applications to the rest 600 million people. If those 600 million people are not uplifted, many play, we have a social unsustainability in our hand, and it's whether we call it selfish or selfish reason for all corporates to even look at that. Social sustainability is an equal part of the ethos of any organization to move forward. You cannot just say that profit is my only goal. How can you profit be goal? Because your end clients are part of the society in many ways, right? and your employees are part of this. Your masons, as you spoke the inspirational stories, it should become such that those no longer become inspirational stories, right? It should be the norms, absolutely. And the corporate sector has to take absolute, but also realize that if India's corporates take responsibility in creating excellent innovations in medical health livelihoods as well as O&M, the huge opportunities for rest of the world opens up for them completely. Because which other country, Europe and US, do not have the problems that we have? The solutions that we come up for those problems in our country are the only Africans will only look at us, because Europeans cannot provide a solution to the Africans, because we have the same problems as Africans, but we have the ability to solve it. And can't we not transfer those solutions to Africa? So the opportunity for us is huge. And we thanks Sab for bringing that up.
So I'll now take up the main question that you asked about just transition. I wanted to do this opener because from the perspective is, what is the meaning of just transition? The just transition is this just transition, that if you are a company in a renewable sector, you also have to be conscious of that there is a fossil fuel industry and which is going in decline while the renewable energy is going up. So, but there is a large social ecosystem around any economic ecosystem. You have a social ecosystem around the existing workforce, their families, the enormous number of service providers. For every one direct job, there are 4 to 5 indirect jobs. There's a whole social and economic ecosystem which operates in any this thing, and especially given the nature of the fossil fuel system, uh, generally the systems are very large, and those large systems getting disrupted is a we know that globally wherever there is a concentration of energy, these are political hotspots also. So we have and they are likely to become, the transition is like is, if it is not done in a proper manner, it will create winners and losers. And that is the responsibility that we have to take, that the transition should not lead to losers, because our energy, the whatever we create, our massive energy will go in dealing with this. And we know that they're not only the globally, but even in India there are energy, our coal mines, the way the social economic structure around them. So the transition has to happen at the mindset level, that the energy transition should lead to a good corporate citizen behavior by all corporates. And it's not only the responsibility of the industry in decline, but also on the responsibility of the industry which is taking over their role. They need to be more responsible. They should not leave those areas as they don't belong to me. They have to assume more responsibility, because there is a shift of economic resources happening. Economic resources are moving from fossil fuel based energy economy to a renewable energy economy. And that means that the more resources, financial resources are available with the new energy economy rather than the old energy economy. And that's where the responsibility should be taken over by. So it's a collective responsibility where government, corporate, and the civil society, Sarkar, Samaj, Bazaar, everybody has to come together to assume this as a responsibility, because no problem in today's world is an isolated problem. A problem somewhere leads to, like in the Ukraine war, it led to a situation where the real diamonds are not being imported to India, and that is causing the huge hardship to the people who are in that industry. So no part of the world is uninfluenced by anything happening in any part of it, good or bad. Both have impact on society. And that is where the just transition has to be a mindset issue rather than the program or project issue.
Sir, it's great to hear both of your viewpoints, that CSR, ESG, all these, be it health or energy, it has to move beyond CSR and ESG, become a normal practice in corporate India. Just wanted to know your thoughts, like I think some of it are covered, but what roadmap do you foresee to ensure that we have set targets for Power for All coalition to achieve universal access before 2030? And even the government of India has set an ambitious target of 450 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030. So what is the roadmap that you foresee in the next 5 to 6 years? What are the targets that corporate India should have, measurable targets, so that this is something that we achieve together?
So if we see that Panchamrit, which our Honorable Prime Minister announced as a country's voluntary contribution to a climate change initiative, that's a guiding light for all of us. And if you go through all those 5 elements, they are actually not energy alone. They are actually transformation of economy, because it talks about carbon neutrality, it talks about energy intensity of the growth itself. So effectively, every segment of society and corporate will have to undergo change. And that is where I believe that the skills ecosystem has to play an important part, because the climate and energy transition will permeate every single job. Every single company will have to bring in all companies are company after company announcing carbon neutrality, carbon positiveness. So that means that every single, if somebody is processing an invoice, which invoice should I give priority to? Can we bring an accounting principle that if this vendor is more green, the early access to his working capital is beneficial, you add more carbon credits to the climate economy. That should become focus, and that is why if you have to take a flight, how many what is your carbon footprint of that flight versus you do an online call as we are doing today. These are all mindset shifts that we have to bring, and that means that every single day, every single minute that we uh, work, live, enjoy our lives, have impact on time. And that is where the bigger mission picture that the PM has given. There are 5 pillars of that. We all know about them. But all those 5 pillars require us to. Another mission that Prime Minister is running is life mission. So all of us to have to adopt to the principle of sustainable way of living our lives and doing our works. So it's a collective call. It's a call that sometimes great leaders give to all their followers, and all of us have to live the dream of our honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Hande, your thoughts on the Power for All coalition and the targets for 2030?
See, the thing is that I would continue to what Vedji said, because I was about to say the life program itself of the country, and especially the Prime Minister's vision. The for example, the way I mean, if you talk about any country to achieve the 2030 goals, I would actually put my money on India completely, because number one, we have very strategic and very strong departments like the Ministry of Women and Childcare, Education, lively of Rural Development, Ministry of Rural Development, etc., etc. Right? So suppose what we should look at is, yes, we look at the supply side of electricity. Now we should look at demand side, and how do we create sub departments of sustainability in each of these departments, right? So for example, you have Department of Health, Women and Childcare, right? So we have 177 or 180,000 health nodal points, like right from CHC to PHC to everything else, the wellness centers, right? Now it's just 200,000, like 2 lakh, right? Now suppose we look at 2 lakh and say that we have 6 years. We divide by 6 years and how do we make it climate resilient? And these 200,000 are actually based in 30 states. We start breaking up, create those planning. Same thing, MORD, Ministry of Rural Development, Ministry of Education. We start breaking those targets, and we have 6 years to go. Innovations in health, innovations in energy, innovation in livelihoods. Livelihood itself can be broken into agriculture, animal husbandry, textile crafts, and resilient micro businesses. each of them have a potential to have decentralized renewable energy as an input to increase their incomes or increase their well-being. And that is where Ved's whole thing of skill sets comes in, right? If we institutionalize the process of sustainability into the skill sets, like energy should not be thought separately. How for every skill set we bring in sustainable energy as a part. Like dal mein, we don't talk about the salt is a part of it, right? The way we look at skills where sustainability being a part of it, you normally, I mean, I don't think so it should be a big deal for us to not reach the targets by 2030. But we should not focus on the target, but if we create the process right now, the target will automatically be reached.
I would like to step in here that what Mr. Harish talked about, that the sustainability or energy, green energy should become part of every job. Recently, I was in Singapore, and they have Skills Future Singapore has come out with a very interesting concept. For them, the economy is only three-way economy. They are saying that there is a care economy, there is a digital economy, and there is a green economy. And every business can only be mapped to only these three types of businesses, and that brings out the paradigm that he's talking. The other thing that you are talking about, sustainability and livelihood, these are extremely important things. That if the energy transition or the other ways of living, the whole thing is changing around us, the livelihoods also have to change, and they have to tap into this. Taking this into consideration, we find that the people who make their livelihoods out of these channels, they face the biggest hurdles. The biggest of the carpets, AAA, is to have access to affordable capital. But the
Right.
but the poor person who needs some working capital or some startup capital for their livelihood initiatives, they don't have access to capital. And that is where NSDC is working. We started working on this concept that there was a time when your only people who had assets get access to credit. Then the credit scores came into picture. If you have good credit history, you will have access to credit. Then in other parts of the world, the whole cash flow concept came into picture, that if you have an income proof, you will get access to credit. But there is a hidden dichotomy here, that if I want to pursue an upskilling in my life and I take a sabbatical, and my CIBIL score will go down because my salary will stop hitting my bank. But whereas I should become more credit worthy because I'm upskilling myself and my income potential is going up. So I started working on this concept that skills should become currency for access to credit.
Right.
And we are coming out, and it would be a good idea for all of us to work on this. And I will request Harish also to take it forward. That we are coming out with a new to income and new to credit concept, where we are going to provide up to 95% of default guarantee. So this will ensure that if you need a very small startup capital or working capital to grow your livelihood, we will what you have to do is that you reach out to NSDC. We will suggest you what skills do you need to earn that livelihood. And the moment we issue certificates, we are working with several financial institutions. We will provide both guarantees, the skill guarantee and a default guarantee. And basis this, a large capital pool will become. So even the livelihood, the whole transition concept, if you can build, right now we have brought health and energy together. If you bring livelihood into this and we provide it with a credit and skill underwriting, that could be a phenomenal opportunity.
Mr. Hande, your thoughts on it?
No, I completely. I mean, it's something that definitely, when I come to Delhi, we should create some sort of a template, and we want to immediately do that, so that becomes a template and take it forward, because we do two things. No, if you look at decreasing the poverty in our country, so the poor, two things need to happen. One is decreasing their expenses, because they have high expenses in health and etc., and increasing their livelihoods. These are two things that we should be able to, with the see, we are a paradox of a country, right? We are an overdeveloped country and an underdeveloped country. Which country offers that? Agar mere ko Orissa mein kaam karna hai, I can get the technology from other part of the country, implement it using a business model, using local skill sets. I mean, brilliant entrepreneurs in rural Odisha. Plug that happen, create a template like Lego pieces, which other country can offer us that. And this is where I think what Vedji was talking is we could create those brilliant islands of R&D. Then that brilliant places of R&D then needs to be scaled up using financial institutions, RRBs, cooperatives, and different banks and financial institutions, different skills based institutions like etc. And then and the private sector to come in with technology. All this can actually happen, and hopefully together we can actually show different models that then can be replicated. Yeah.
Actually, I want to use this CSR box forum and want to through you, I want to convey to every institution who is in the CSR space. We are creating a guarantee platform which will provide access to those who want to be skill providers. They can set up,
Right.
they can have access to capital to set up institutions. As I talked about, we are providing access to entrepreneurial capital. We are also providing access to a skill loan, which any skill seeker can have. Now, as I was telling that CSR or ESG should not become a part of a charity work. We can actually make the talk more if we make it outcome funded. And as I would inform that recently our skill impact bond that we created has got a award in Malaysia through best financial inclusion project in Asia for bringing women and children into the economic system. What I'm proposing is that CSR funds can be used to provide guarantee capital. Okay. And because you have a leverage effect, every rupee that you commit to a guarantee fund can actually give you 20 to 30 times of the leverage. Now, CSR laws require that the money that you commit to CSR should be spent in 3 years. What we can do is that third year, beginning of the third year, this fund, which was logged in a providing guarantee, can actually now move as an interest subvention. That you get the skill loan to the students, and so we provide a guarantee for those loans, even if the cost of those funds are say 12%. Now you use the money which comes out now, third year it has to be spent. If you use for interest subvention and bring down the cost of that capital to say 5%, 6%, it brings more responsible behaviors on part of those who are acquiring skills. They want to go to entrepreneurship. And that's a model if we work. The multiplier impact of CSR, even every 1 rupee of the CSR is enormous, because then you are only doing an interest subvention, and you are so we can make this whole CSR paradigm very powerful paradigm in times to come. And I'll use this forum to please take this message across to all corporates that there is a new way of building a CSR based or ESG based ecosystem for skills.
Can I add to what Vedji has said?
Sure.
Because I also want to take advantage, because also want the corporates not to use CSR as a demotion for somebody, right? In a sense, ki was a demotion posting ho gaya. And then people fund these projects where my only goal is to get a photograph for my annual report. And I think that's where we lose the battle here. The CSR money is one of the most expensive, which can actually create future markets and open up future markets. I mean, as Vedji said, that's a program design thinking of putting up guarantees, a program design thinking, right? It is not a project-based thinking. Because unfortunately, Vedsa, the whole CSR stuff talks in terms of project, kitna kiya, 20 ghar ke, 30 ghar ke, rather than a process-oriented thinking. And I think corporate leaders need to look at CSR is a transformational innovation systems thinking program, and where we need to think in terms of 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. It's not like, am I doing it for my annual report? That shift needs to happen.
Lovely hearing your thoughts, because we also come into interact with corporates, and there's a short-term thinking. It has to go beyond, go 5, 6 years long-term plans. Just on as concluding remarks, we all know that India would complete 100 years of independence in 2047. So I wanted to know your vision for the country after 100 years of independence, and if you want to give a larger message to the social sector of the country who are watching this Impact Talk.
So, if I may go first,
Sure.
if we take India is growing at 6.5%, there's hardly any debate anywhere in the world that India will grow at 6.5%. If India grows at 6.5%, we will be a $30 trillion economy by 2047. That would mean that if we take our per capita income, we will be at $20,000 or $25,000 per capita GDP at that point of time. Now, this leap from a $2,000 per capita GDP to $25,000 per capita GDP, both are given that India will have a per capita GDP of $25,000. India will have a $30 trillion economy, but there could be massive asymmetry or massive inequality if we are not taking everybody along. Taking everybody along can happen only through a skills way. We have to do a massive skilling, reskilling, upskilling program in this country. We also have to bring another paradigm into the picture that we have a demographic dividend that will be with us for next 25 years. Actually, we are in that sweet spot where our next 25 years are actually coinciding with our demographic dividend also. The world will add close to 1 billion people in next 25 years, incremental workforce. 25% of them will come from India. Now imagine that we are not talking about GDP of $30 trillion of India. We are talking about the global GDP where Indians can make a huge contribution. And today we are talking about one Satya Nadella, one Sundar Pichai who occupied global space 30 years ago. Imagine that every fourth worker who will participate in global economy will be an Indian. And that's the power that we are going to have. India does not need to occupy another territory like many other countries to exercise. The diaspora, today, White House celebrates Diwali because of the soft power that we have. Now, if we imagine that the entire globe is our workplace, and that's the workplace transition that is happening, the corporates today have tremendous opportunity that you can build India of tomorrow, which is a developed country where everybody has a real $30,000 per capita income rather than an average with a huge disparity. That's the vision that I think our honorable Prime Minister has in his mind, and I completely subscribe to that and would like to work for this.
So thank you, sir. By 2047, I think we should be an established capital of sustainable solutions for the world. I mean, the question is, if tomorrow Mali government wants to create a whole paradigm shift of their own country, Mizoram and Meghalaya should be the showcase for them. Ethiopia, for example, then rural Madhya Pradesh and parts of Odisha should be a showcase for them. We should be the R&D capital for the world. And that's what I believe that by 2047, we become where when people think of India, people think of India, as I take Mr. Ved's words, of soft power of solutions, that we are not a country that actually occupies anybody, but we are a country that actually solves the world's problems. And that's the potential we have. And the corporates should realize that's a potential we have as a diversity in terms of the terrain, in terms of geography, in terms of the culture that we have. We need to take advantage. And by 2047, it's 24 years away or 23 years away. But I think in the next 12 years, we should establish that. And by 2047, we should cement that.
Thank you, Mr. Hande, and thank you, Mr. Ved, for joining in. It was lovely to hear your thoughts on the entire health energy program moving towards sustainability in general. Thank you for participating in the discussion.
Thank you so much.